Hello and welcome to Barbershop Books Story Time with Alvin Irby. That's me. Today's story is a continuation of a story that we've been reading, and it's called Pink and Say. Now, just in case this is your very first time listening to this story, I'm going to give you a summary, which means I'm just going to tell you about what's already happened in the book. So, today's story is called Pink and Say. What do we see on the cover? We see two boys, one here, and they're reading. Well, let me tell you what Pink and Say is all about. This story is about two Union soldiers. So if you don't remember, this story is about something that happened in history, and it's called the Civil War. There were two parts of the United States, in the North and in the South, and they were fighting like a war. They were fighting because there were people, mostly in the South, who were forced to work for no money. Not $1, not $2, I mean no money. And so the soldiers in the North, the Union soldiers, they didn't think that was right. And so they said, you know what, we're going to fight so that we can free those people from having to work for no money. And one of the soldiers, he got hit in the leg, and then he was hurt really, really bad. But there was another soldier who found him, and he took him back to his house to help him heal and get all better. So we are now going to pick up where we left off. The next morning, we mustered to leave. So the soldiers had went back to one of their mothers, to their homes, and then they were healing, they were eating, they were getting ready. And so now they're about to go back to the Civil War so that they can fight for the freedom of those people who were forced to have to work and work and work for no money. That's important. They had to work for no money. It was not good. We packed cornbread, salt pork, and dried beans. I would have done just about anything to stay, but my place was to go with Pink. Now, I forgot to tell you who the characters are. So, this is Pink and this is Say. Now, that's their nicknames. Their real names are Pincus and Sheldon. But nobody calls them Pincus and Sheldon. Everyone calls them by their nicknames. So, again, this is Pink right here, and this is Say over here. And you want to know who's telling this story? It's Say. He's the one telling the story. Okay, back to the story. We packed cornbread, salt pork, and dried beans. That's kind of making me hungry. I would have done just about anything to stay, but my place was to go with Pink. I owed him that. Why do you think he said he owed him that? It's probably because Pink is the one who saved him. Remember, he was hurt and he was lying down and he wasn't sure if he was going to be okay, but then Pink showed up, saved him, so he feels like he has to go with Pink. Just as we were making the last sweep of the place, making sure there were no signs of us ever being there, we heard wild screams. That doesn't sound good at all. And shrieks coming from the woods. Marauders! Pink said as he grabbed a piece of wood for a club. Momo Bay, that's Pink's mother, took it from him. Get to the root cellar. They ain't got no truck with an old dark woman. You get in the cellar, you hear? So, Pink, his mom made both of the boys get into the root cellar. What in the world is a root cellar? Well, it's kind of like a little room that's under the floor. So like imagine if you could lift up the floor and then kind of like go down into like a little hole. Well, that's what a root cellar is. And The reason they call it a root cellar is because that's usually where people stored root vegetables like potatoes or carrots. Onions, those are roots. So like those are the kinds of things, and probably jams or preserves or jellies. I think they also stored those in root cellars. So that's where Momo Bay, which is Pink's mother, that's where she told them to hide from the marauders. Now, if you don't remember from the earlier part of the story, marauders were mean people who went around stealing things and hurting people. So if you ever heard marauders, oh, you better hide. So this is where we pick up. They're in the house and everyone hears marauders. And Momo Bay, Pink's mom, tells everybody to get down into the root cellar, except her. Oh man, this is kind of scary. We didn't like it, but then she pushed us. Hurry up, for they hear. She lifted the root cellar door and shoved us in. Don't come out till I tell you. We heard the porch steps creak as she ran from the cabin. She's drawing them off, Pink whispered. So she was trying to distract the marauders away, to kind of get them to chase her away from the house so that the boys would be safe. I wonder what's going to happen. I'm kind of getting a little scared. Okay, I'm just going to keep reading. I was sure they could hear it. Oh, wait. When the marauders came in, my heart started pounding hard. So the marauders actually came in the house. But remember, Pink and Say are hiding in the root cellar under the floor. So the marauders, even if they come in, they're not going to find Pink and Say unless they know to look in the root cellar. There was a terrible commotion as they ransacked looking for food. Ransacked is just a fancy word for they were like rumbling. Oh man, that's another college word. So rumbling and ransacking, it's kind of like looking through everything and making a big mess. Like imagine if someone went in your bedroom and just start throwing all of your clothes around, went in your dresser or your closet and just start pulling everything out. Well, that's what ransacked means. It means that someone is kind of rushing around, pulling everything out and making a big mess. And that's exactly what the marauders did to Pink's house. They were looking for food, and so they were just taking everything out. Then there was silence. I wonder why there was silence. A single shot echoed through the trees outside. Oh no. There was a shot from a gun. What could that be? This is getting really scary. Let's see. They let out a war whoop as they thundered off. So we just heard a shot ring out and then the marauders left. But Momo Bay is outside. Pink's mother is out there. I don't know. This is kind of like a little scary. Let's see what happens. We waited for a sign from Momo Bay, but it didn't come. Finally, we climbed out and ran outside only to see Momo Bay lying just behind the porch. Now remember, this story is about history. It's a real story. And this is a story that Say, he's told to his children and they told it to their children so that everyone will remember what Pink did for him, which is save his life. He was injured and then Pink saved him and brought him back to his house to nurse him back to health so that he would be healthy and safe. Now remember, during the Civil War, there were Union soldiers in the North and there were Confederate soldiers in the South. The Confederate soldiers in the South, well, they wanted all of the people to keep working for free. These were called enslaved Africans. They brought them from Africa to here, and they forced them to work and work and work for no money. And the Confederate soldiers wanted them to keep working for no money. But the Union soldiers in the North, they said, no. If they're going to work, you need to pay them. And so they fought in wars and battles to try. The Confederate soldiers in the South, they wanted them to keep working. The Union soldiers wanted them to be free. And the marauders, I don't even know if they were soldiers. They were just people who were running around taking and stealing things and hurting people. And so that's why it was super dangerous. Well, look, here is Momo Bay forcing the two boys to get into the root cellar. Let's find out. We put you in there. Oh, man. We put you in there way by staying here. Oh, we put you in their way by staying here. So what Pink is saying, and he was crying as he rocked her in his arms. By them coming there, Pink says that he thinks that he put his mom in harm's way. Her eyes were looking in a faraway place as he closed them. Your son loves you, Momo Bay. Your son loves you, he sobbed as he kissed her. Sob just means that he was crying a lot, a lot, a lot. We both held her hands until there was no more warmth in them. Oh man, this is really sad. Remember how Momo Bay, that's Pink's mom, made Pink and Say get down and into the root cellar, and then while they were waiting for things to be safe, remember they heard that shot and they didn't know what had happened. They just kept waiting for Momo Bay to come back and tell them that it was safe to leave the root cellar, but she never came back. And when they went outside, this is what they found. This is really scary. Everybody's sad. Momo Bay had been hurt by the marauders. She had been hurt by the marauders. And now Pink is crying and crying and crying because his mom was gone. After we buried her under the willow tree, we set out. Pink figured we were 3 days' walk from the Union troops. The troops are the group of Union soldiers who were fighting to free all of the enslaved Africans. Those were the people that Americans brought from Africa to the United States to make them work for no money. And so the Union soldiers were trying to free them. And so Pink and Say, they were trying to connect back with the Union soldiers so that they could fight to help free all of the people. He watched the movement of the sun. Her words still rang in my heart. Her words about being brave. My steps were as sure now as they had ever been since the war started. We walked in the open, as clear as country stroll, as clear as a country stroll, until the morning of the second day. Then we knew we were being followed. Oh man. So Pink and Say are walking, trying to find the Union soldiers, but somebody was following them. But who's following them? I hope it's not the marauders, and I hope it's not Confederates, because that would not be good. Take these, Pink said as he took his spectacles from his pocket. If they catch me with them, there'll be trouble for sure. Spectacles are just another word for glasses. I wonder why Pink told Say to keep the glasses. Because he said that if someone finds him with glasses, he'll be in trouble. I think I remember. Remember Pink said that it was against the law for enslaved Africans to read? And so sometimes people use glasses to read. And so I think what Pink was saying is that if someone caught him with glasses, then maybe they would know that he could read and then he would get in trouble. Remember, this story was from a long time ago. And there was a time when the government would not let certain people read. I know. Isn't that sad? That's kind of how it makes me feel too. When they caught up to us, one yelled at me, "Where you going with that darky, boy?" Oh man, that's not nice. I was afraid to answer because of my northern accent. It would dead give us away. So he didn't want to speak because he had an accent from the north and they were not in the north. And so if the people on the horses heard his accent, they would know that maybe he wasn't from around there. Boy, what your outfit you part of? Their leader barked. I couldn't answer. You Union boy? One jeered as he pulled my uniform from my knapsack. No, I ain't no Yankee. I got that from a dead one. I sputtered, trying to convince them. That was when we were grabbed. My words had given us away. We were prisoners of the Confederate Army. Oh no! Oh man, Pink and Say got caught by the Confederates. For those of you who are just tuning in to Barbershop Books Storytime, today we're reading part 3. Yes, part 3 of Pink and Say. And remember, the Union soldiers in the North were fighting against the Confederate soldiers. Pink and Say were both Union soldiers, and they just got captured by the Confederates. This is not looking good for Pink and Say at all. That was when we were grabbed. My words had given us away. We were prisoners of the Confederate Army. We were held up in a barn that night. Pink shivered with fever. I held him as he had done for me. And look, here are the guys that captured Pink and Say. Can you see them? And that was one of them asking him, "Where are you from?" The next morning, we were thrown into a boxcar. That's like a box behind a train, and it carries things or people, I guess, from one place to another on the train tracks. So they were thrown into a boxcar. We rode for what seemed 2 days, stopping many times. When the door slid open, the daylight was blinding. Have you ever had someone turn the lights on real quick and it kind of hurts your eyes? Well, that's what he meant by the light was blinding, because they were in this boxcar and I guess it was really, really dark. So whenever they opened the boxcar, the light would just come right in and it would hurt their eyes. Man, we were loaded into a buckboard and taken through town. The town folks looked hard at us. All they had left for us was mean looks and a heap of hate. I don't think this town liked Union soldiers at all. We jarred to a stop in front of gates that marked the entrance to a stockade. A stockade, I think, is like a place where they store or keep a whole lot of stuff, like supplies and I guess people or I don't know, other stuff, food. It says Andersonville, Pink whispered. Oh, he whispered. It says Andersonville. My heart stopped. I had heard of this place. It was one of the worst of the Confederate camps. Oh man, this is not good for Pink and Say. They were captured by the Confederate soldiers. Now they're taken to the worst Confederate camp, the worst one. I don't even know what that means, but it can't be good for Pink and Say. When we were pulled from the buckboard, we fell hard to the ground. No, 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 I begged as they pulled us both along. Because of his fever, Pink stumbled and fell. They dragged him along with such meanness. He did not protest until they forced us in different directions. Then he reached for me and said, "Let me touch his hand. Let me touch the hand that touched Mr. Lincoln. Say just one more time." Remember, Say said that he had once shook hands with Abraham Lincoln. That was the president at this time. And so Pink said, "Let me just shake the hand of the hand that touched the hand of Abraham Lincoln just one more time." And look, here they are pulling Pink and Say apart. I wonder why they're separating them. At that time, I think they would separate the white soldiers from the black soldiers. And when I say soldiers, I mean separate the white Union soldiers from the black Union soldiers. I know that made Pink and Say really sad because they had become really good friends. So if they were separated from each other, I know that it would make them really sad. I watched tears fill his eyes and cleaved my hand to his until they wrenched us apart. They smote him and dragged him. Now, cleave just means they were really tight together. And wrench them apart just means that the men pull them apart like that. That's what it means to wrench them apart, to pull them apart. And then it said they smote him and dragged him away. Smote just means that they hit him. And I think they hit him hard. That's not a nice thing to do, to hit someone. He looked back at me and tried to say something more, but they crossed his back with knotted hemp and pushed him along. So they hit him with like some kind of hard rope, and then they pulled him. And here they are with their hands clenched together. And do you see the men trying to wrench them apart, trying to pull their arms apart? I can only imagine how sad Pink and Say must have felt at this time. Sheldon Russell Curtis. That's Say's real name. Sheldon Russell Curtis was released from Andersonville prison some months later, weighing no more than 78 pounds. 78 pounds? That's really, really skinny. I don't think they were feeding him anything hardly at all if he only weighed 78 pounds. Andersonville was built to hold only 10,000 prisoners, but by the end of the war, it held 33,000 soldiers. If something is only supposed to have 10,000 soldiers, but they have 33,000, that means that they must have packed everybody in super duper tight. And it must have been really uncomfortable and super duper stinky probably. Man, there was no fresh water, no shelter, no food. 13,000 men and boys died of starvation. that means they died from having no food. Starvation means that you don't have any food at all. Man, that's really sad. Sheldon Curtis returned to his home and recovered. He settled in Berlin Township and Saranac, Michigan. He married Abigail N. Bernard and fathered 7 children. So Sheldon Curtis, also known as Say, had 7 children. Wow. He became a grandfather and a great-grandfather. During his long lifetime, he died a very old man in 1924. Wow. Pincus Ailey, that was Pink, never returned home. For him, there was to be no wife, no children, no grandchildren to remember him. It was told that he was hanged. Within hours after he was taken into Andersonville, his body was thrown into a lime pit. This is really sad. Sheldon, or Say, lived to be an old man. He went on to get married and to have children. But Pincus, Pink for short, he was hung. They killed him. The Confederate soldiers killed Pink soon after he arrived in this camp, this Confederate camp. Now I think I understand why people said that Andersonville was the worst Confederate camp. And look, here's Pink and Say in their Union outfits, in their Union soldier uniforms. They were patriots, meaning they cared a lot about the United States, about this country. I know this story to be true because Sheldon Russell Curtis told his daughter Rosa. Rosa Curtis Stowell told it to her daughter Estella. Estella Stowell Barber in turn told it to her son William. He told it to me, his daughter Patricia. When my father finished this story, he put out his hand and said, "This is the hand." Oh, I think I know what he's going to say. This is the hand that has touched the hand, that has touched the hand, that shook the hand of Abraham Lincoln. So the author of this story, Patricia Palacco, her great-great-great-great-grandfather was Sheldon, was Say. She wrote this story about her great-great-great-great-grandfather. Wow, this is a true story that really happened. And look, here is Patricia Palacco, the author of the story. And I think this is her dad, or maybe that's her grandfather, telling this story to her. Wow. Did you know that this story was real? That it was true? It really happened. And the author wrote this story about a story that her father told to her. Did you know that some stories are true stories? This book serves as a written memory of Pincus Ailey, since there was no living descendants to do this for him. When you read this, before you put this book down, say his name out loud and vow to remember him always. Pincus Ailey. I'll remember him always. And that is the end of the story. And look, there's some pictures from Patricia Palacco's family history. That's the end. Thank you so much for watching today's Barbershop Book story time about Pink and Say. If you would like to learn more information about Barbershop Books, please visit our website at barbershopbooks.org, or you can connect with us on social media at Barbershop Books. Well, until next time, bye.